It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Moshe Moskowitz. We're here in your beautiful apartment in Beit Shemesh. And Moshe, you come from probably one of the most amazing families. It's incredible, the story, how your family survived against all odds. If you could tell us a little bit about your very special family.
Yeah, I mean, I can go back, of course, very far back, but that's not the point now. I assume. I think I would go back to 1938, where my parents lived in Bratislava and in Slovakia, and it was Czechoslovakia, now Slovakia. And my father was a cantor, and became the chief cantor in Amsterdam in a new synagogue, the Lekstraat synagogue, which was huge. The synagogue was 950 seats, and he became the cantor over there after a contest with 10 other cantors, and so in 1940 the Germans invaded Holland, and from 1941 on they started with all the restrictions and the yellow star, and they were not allowed to here, not allowed there, and all this. We all know what they were not allowed to. And at a certain moment, my father was already in 1942, approximately, maybe before that. He was taken to the Dutch camp of Westerbork. Westerbork was actually a gathering camp for all the Jews, and from there they were sent eastwards. He came home during half a year, a bit more than half a year. He was allowed to come home. 1941. They took him to Westerbork. He was in Westerbork, I think, for more than a year. But he came home twice in Amsterdam. Nobody of the family understood why they didn't go in hiding, because I know that they offered him. I don't know. That's one of the things nobody of us ever understood. But anyway, in 1942. They took also my mother and my three of the siblings. My oldest brother, Uriel, was then 8, and the oldest sister was 4, and the youngest was born in 1942, so was a baby. And from Westerbork we were deported to Germany, I mean to the camps. What was very surreal was that because my father had a Romanian passport and my mother had a Hungarian passport, we think that was the reason why they didn't have to pushed into a cattle car. They were allowed to sit in a normal. I think you have to look over there, right? They were allowed to sit in a normal wagon, and my sister, my mother told me, I think they got even some raw vegetables to eat, and which was so surreal. But behind the normal wagons there were the cattle cars, so the Jews over there packed in the cattle cars, and they were sitting in a normal whatever. That was so. At a certain moment in Germany, they were taken apart. I mean, my father ended up in Buchenwald.
Your mother was taken to Ravensbrück.
My mother was 3 children taken to Ravensbrück, and and there actually my my mother was there till almost the end of the war. 3 months before the liberation, the Germans they took a whole group of Dutch women from Ravensbrück to Bergen-Belsen, and that's where they were liberated. Now, to tell about, my father ended up in Buchenwald and was there also by approximately 4 months before the liberation. I'm writing a book, and because of writing a book, I asked there is in Germany in Bad Arolsen, there's the main war archive from Germany, which is I think already for 15 years open for public. And I asked him, for example, I've asked him about my father. I knew approximately which month they were taken out from Buchenwald to the death march to Theresienstadt. So the answer I got from Bad Arolsen was that there was not one, I think there were even 3 different death marches to different directions. And the one who ended up in Theresienstadt, they put up first of all in a train, in cattle cars, and only after 2 or 3 stops, I have it written but I forgot already the names of the stations, only then they were taken out from the train and they had to walk. They to know what Bad Arolsen is and how till today the Germans are so, how to say this, they have everything. She sent me a copy of one of the lower officers who was it was his job to get all the Jews on the train, and there's a little small piece of paper in a notebook where you see he writes the train the time where the train would leave, and it was crossed, and another time was crossed, and so finally this train would go to take them to. I mean, little pieces, even the little pieces, they have it in Bad Arolsen. So he ended up. That must have been because I know that the liberation was somewhere in June. I don't have it in front of me, of course, the exact dates, but I know that Shavuot, they were still in Theresienstadt.
And Moshe, can I just mention, if you
Sure.
could tell a bit about your father, how he went out of his way to save Mr. Laufen.
Yeah, okay, but I will come to that. But I think it's a bit important to know, at what time of the year, they had to start walking. Approximately, I think in the calendar, it was June, so that is okay. I think it must have been in March that they started working. It was still cold, it was still snow. Why was it important? Because my father told me, I asked him, what did you eat? And he said nothing. When there was no food, we ate grass, we ate some leaves from the trees, if you could, and drink. That's why I'm saying it was still a bit winter time, there was snow. So, because once in a while they passed a river or a beach, whatever, so there was water there, so they wanted to drink. Sometimes they let them drink, and many times they chased them from the water away. The Germans couldn't even drink. So so that's why I said it's important. He said there was snow, and for snow we could grab a snow and to have some liquid, and once in a while there were also from the farmers or from the little villages where we passed, they came out with food. They had pity on us. And sometimes we got some food, but many times also the Germans, the villagers, which were chased away by the soldiers. So by the very end, I looked it up from Theresienstadt, from Buchenwald to Theresienstadt is about approximately like 200 kilometers. And as I said, the first part, the smaller part, they went by train, but then I took walk. I'm not so sure how many days, but I assume it was at least a week and a half they was walking. And we all know that as long as you keep on walking, they did nothing. The moment you sat down, you couldn't do it anymore, couldn't walk anymore. You sat on the street. They shot you. And by the very end, it was a very long, I say, queue. You say, right, and groups, little groups, and so on, and everyone has his own pace. And said, as long as you were walking, they left you alone. And my father was behind, more behind Mr. Laufer, really, as he was his name. And so all of a sudden he saw really Laufer sitting on the street. So he said, really, get up, we will shoot you. So Mr. Laufer said, Benzi, my father's Benzi, ik ken niet meer, I can't walk anymore. I want to, but my legs don't let me walk anymore. So my father begged him, get up, because they will shoot you. And Willy said, leave me alone. He started already saying, wie doe je? So my father said, you could see, he told me, you could see from the far, you could see already Theresienstadt. And apparently they knew that was Theresienstadt, because Theresienstadt there was a gate with 2 towers, and I assumed that people knew already we are almost there. Maybe the Germans said it. So I said to Mr. Laufer, really get up. I mean, it's I maybe 2 kilometers. So he said, I can't walk anymore. So my father said, I'm not letting you die here. So he slapped him up, and on his shoulder, like one arm here, and he slapped him. I said, pace by pace, foot by foot, till he was almost there. And then he said, I myself couldn't slap him anymore, because Mr. Laufer, he told me also, Mr. Laufer, his feet were dragging in the. He didn't give any support to my father, because he couldn't. And on the very end, my father couldn't do it anymore on his own. So there was another friend, I forgot the name already, who helped him. So he took one arm and he took one arm. So in that part, Mr. Laufer told me, not my father. Mr. Laufer told me much later. You know, probably Mr. Laufer passed away when he was 97 or 98, something like that. My father passed away when he was 61. Still from I'll tell you that later. But he told me that we were there we came by the gate from Theresienstadt, and the Germans were counting who came in. So they were counting 797, 798, 799, 800. And he said that was me. Your father, he were the three last ones, because we had to slap him. We were the last ones, and then they closed the gate. We were the last one from 1,500 inmates that I know from Bad Arolsen. 1,500 inmates started working. 800 survived. The rest was all on the way. And So they came in and they were skeletons. My father said, weighted, you say, 36 kilo. It was garnished. It was so nothing anymore that when they came in, the Jews from Theresienstadt, I mean the inmates from Theresienstadt, they knew that the whole group was coming in, so they were standing there from both sides and looking at the poor people who came in. And then all of a sudden my father saw my mother's cousin, Moshe, and he called out, Moshe, it's me. I said, did you recognize him? Did you recognize him? But that was the end. But of course there are stories from before. And one of the stories from before was that Mr. Laufer and my father, they were all the time together, and they were working together in factories and on the streets, and wherever they had to work, they worked together. Another story is when also my Mr. Laufer told it, and my father never told this. One of the factories we were working was a ammunition factory. I think it was an ammunition factory, yeah. And it was, we were there for, we were sent out from Buchenwald to different places. So this factory had their own barracks for us to sleep. And but we were there for 2 months, 3 months, and then we went back to Buchenwald, and went back, to go to other places to work. And one day he said we were working there. That was Mr. Laufer told me. And the factory was bombed by the Allies. It must be also in 43, 44 probably. Bombed by the Allies. And he said, Moshe, oh no, I have to start the story in a different way. I go back. Once in a while, when Mr. Laufer had his shop, he was a fur maker, amazing fur maker. He was one of the best in Holland. But also in Israel, he had his own shop, and in his little place. And when I was in town, and I had the opportunity, I went over to Mr. Laufer to say hello. How are you? And so on. And one day, I was like, today's Rosh Chodesh. It was also Rosh Chodesh, and I was in town. I lived in Jerusalem then. I lived only for 5 years here in Bet Shemesh. I went over to say hello to Mr. Laufer. It was in the neighborhood. So, good morning, Mr. Laufer. How are you? It's nice to see you. So Mr. Laufer said, hi Moshe. Good Chodesh, he said. This morning I cried again. So, why were you crying? He said, since the war, after the liberation, whenever I say Hallel, or whether it's the Chagim, whether it's Rosh Chodesh, and it comes by the part of Hodel Hashem Ki Tov Ki L'Olam Chasdo, I start crying. So I asked Mr. Laufer, why are you crying? What's the reason? So I tell you. We were in one of the factories. It was what I said. It was a ammunition factory, and the factory was bombed by the Allies. He says it was an inferno. I was out of my mind. I panicked and I didn't know what to do. And he says that the inferno was the fire and the explosions and around us. And we didn't know where to go, and I didn't know what to do. So he said, your father, he was also a bit calmer than me. He said, take my hand. He grabbed my hand, and he slapped me under the bunk bed. There were the 3 floors bunk bed. He slapped me under the bunk bed, to hide further whatever had happened. And he said to me, really, say after me, Hodel Hashem ki tov ki l'olam chasdo. Hodel Hashem ki tov ki l'olam chasdo. And Mr. Laufer said to me, Moshe, all the time, and it was maybe an hour, when they just keep on bombing, and the explosions and the fire and the nest that was, we didn't get all the time we were yelling at the top of our voices, Hodel Hashem ki tov ki l'olam chasdo. So I'm crying every time. It reminds me from them. But they said to me, till today, I don't know, why did your father do that? I mean, I know, you have to obviously thank God, and Mr. Navas was a very, very, very God-fearing man, and so I say, at that same moment, as I knew my father, the same moment, he couldn't think otherwise than whatever Kodesh Baruch Hu does. And he I accept it. His love for Kodesh Baruch Hu. Whatever you do, he said. Sorry.
It's very emotional.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this, he didn't let nothing to give it a crack in my emunah, in my thing. He didn't let it. He said, whatever you do, whatever Kodesh Baruch Hu does, whatever I accept ba'ava. So that's why he said, Hodel Hashem ki tov ki l'olam chasdo. My father never told me this story. I heard it years later, but Mr. Love was already 90, I think, when he told me this. And he always kept saying, Moshe, I don't know, why am I here? And why is your father not here? And he saved my life. You're asking me, ask Kodesh Baruch Hu, that was but I do know, my father passed away when he was 61. He passed away from asbestosis. I don't know if you are familiar with asbestos. Asbestos is a mineral which, if you get this in the lungs, it doesn't go out anymore. Like many other things which you get you inhale, goes out, you sweat it out, or whatever. Not by this. Not. It's a mineral which is on a certain moment it starts ruining the lungs, because lungs are by breathing, it's kind of little bubbles, right? So it's rubbing together. It starts breaking the lungs. Now my father was a chazan, I told you, and the doctor afterwards told me that miners, those who are in the asbestos mines, they are going on the retirement. They go on retirement when they are 40. Why? Because in general, a general miner from the asbestos, he got this asbestos in his lungs, and he has another 25 to 30 years to live. So that's why they sent them away on the retirement already by the 40. See, your father, because he was a chazer, he was a singer, his lungs were working double hard. That he passed away after 18 years, and not 30 years. But I do know, also because of Mr. Laufer, I mean, sometimes you ask yourself, why this happens, why that happens? How come that my father had this asbestosis? So Mr. Laufer, he said to me that we were working already in another place. We were working outside, and we were laying cables electricity cables. But it was cold, it was very cold. It was in winter time, and they had hardly something to keep warm. So my father was afraid for his voice. He was always singing, also the camp he was singing. He was afraid for his voice, And he asked the officer, German officer, if he could get work inside and not outside in the cold. And they said it's okay. So instead of laying the cables, they send them to the factory where they are making the cables, where they are wrapping the cables with asbest. Much later, sometimes you have a hint, now I do understand what happened. And it's only the last, we started writing the book, and I was thinking about it, and I put one and one is two. Because the other story is that my father was a beside a cantor. He studied in Vienna in the academy, music academy. After yeshiva, he was in yeshiva in Pressburg for 6 years. In Pressburg yeshiva, got smicha there, and he had a beautiful voice. Also as a kid, he already has a beautiful voice. And by the way, he was davening for Shoshone Yom Kippur in the big synagogue of Kosovo as a 16-year-old boy, which is almost never heard of it, because Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur you take married men, not boys, if you have, of course. So one day he was one of the factories. Before that, he was singing, was humming by himself, and there was one of the German officers. He heard him singing, and he said to him, "Why are you singing?" So my father said, "I'm a cantor. So I'm singing." "You know, it's a cantor." I said, "Yes." So this officer said, "Do you know only Jewish things, or do you also know other things like arias and opera?" So my father said, "Yes." I said he was trained in Vienna in the academy. So I said, "Yes, I know Napolitan songs, arias, and Solomia, whatever, you know, these kind of things. He knows all these things." So they asked him once in a while to sing for the Germans. And he told me that it was very often that they also needed some entertainment, and he came in the barrack from the officers and the soldiers, and they were sitting. All the officers were sitting, and there were soldiers who got a spare moment or for an hour free, came to listen, and he was singing. He was singing all these kind of things. And every time, and really every time, he finished his repertoire, he got a whole bread. He got a whole loaf of bread. The Germans were I told you already, it is surreal what they did and what they sometimes, you know. We all know that one thing about the Germans was that the culture was, you know, this, by them, that was on the highest level. So if they knew somebody who could sing like he could sing, if I'm telling you he could sing, he was amazing. I don't know if you ever heard. I tell people, if you want to know how my father was singing before the war, when he got his job, you have to listen to Joseph Schmidt. Have you heard of Joseph Schmidt? Was famous. He was a famous opera singer. He couldn't sing opera because he was too little, so he only performed on stage. And they called my father Joseph Schmidt 2, number 2. That was his voice. So the Germans, they heard somebody singing like this, they had to pay for it. They couldn't let him go without. So they gave him a loaf of bread. And whenever he came back to the barrack, they of course they start cutting pieces of bread. Everyone got a piece of bread, and he was sharing, of course, everything. And sometimes he said, once in a while, if I did more, a bigger repertoire, or they liked it more, whatever, he once in a while he got even 2 loaves of bread. Can you imagine? People were dying from hunger. So once he said that many times, they were also hungry. So they said to my father, Benzi, please go sing, because we. So now I do understand why he was so afraid to lose his voice by laying the cable outside in the wintertime. Because losing his voice was losing whole loaves of bread. That was the thing. That I only lately I put two and two together. But it cost him it cost him a lot. Yeah, listen, I was born, my sister was born, he saw grandchildren too. Yet הוא זכה לראות נכדים, זה כן. Yeah. He was an amazing person. He was amazing. He always held the spirit high by singing Yiddish songs and
after the war, where did he?
Back to Amsterdam.
And he was a chazan in Amsterdam.
Yeah, back to the same shul. The shul wasn't destroyed. The shul wasn't destroyed by the Germans because the shul was a very modern building, and they wanted to make a theater out of it. But the Dutch people in 1944, there was a hunger year, and they had nothing to heat. It was terrible winter, and they broke out everything what you could see to heat up themselves. So the neighbors from the shul, they didn't destroy the shul, but they broke out all the benches for themselves to heat up. So after the war, they redid all refurnished all the things, and yeah, it was, one of the sisters from Tzvi, years ago, she told me that they were with a few sisters together in Kibbutz Lavi, and they met an older man. They were speaking Dutch to each other, of course. And there was an older man sitting right next table, and he came over and he said, "I hear that you are speaking Dutch." So I said, "Yeah." So I said, "I do remember I was in Buchenwald." He said, he was over 90 at the time. I was in Buchenwald, and there were Dutch people as well. So they asked him, "Do you remember names?" So he said, "No, I don't remember any name anymore, but I do remember one person who always was singing." And he also said, "I do remember that he was singing in a Yiddish song, and it goes, 'Ich fuhr heim,' we are going home." And that was amazing. That was amazing.
That was your father?
That was my father, yeah. He always singing, "Ich fuhr heim, ich fuhr heim. Ich will nicht mehr," and so on and so on. So yeah, that was he held the spirit high for many. But by the end, after the liberation, they asked the people where you want to go. So those who came from Western Europe, so where to go home if there's home. So. And my father and Mr. Laufer went on the plane. I don't know if it's Russian or, because I think the regiment was liberated by the Russians, something, and maybe it's all right. Anyway, they were on the plane, and Mr. Laufer told me again. Mr. Laufer, he told me a lot of stories which my father didn't. He said your father was first. We go up the stairs of the plane, and I was still on the bottom of the stairs. He turned around, your father, and he said to me, "Really?" He said, "I promise you, we are going home, we fuhren naar heim." I always said we are fuhren naar heim. We are going home now. Yeah. And then coming home in the city of Eindhoven, where the Philips factories are, there he landed. And 3 hours later, there were two quarantine camps in Eindhoven. One was the factory itself, had big holes, and there was another quarantine camp somewhere else. So part of the how do you call it, repatriant, or I tell how it's in English. There were the survivors. Part of the survivors came in this part, the other part, and there was already a few rabbis, Dutch rabbis, who survived in hiding, I think. One was Rabbi Prince, who became later the rabbi of ours. I was there, but yet in shul, the same shul as my father was, Gazen. And he came up to my father 3 hours later, and he said, "You know, in the other quarantine camp, there's a mother with 3 kids, by the same Moskovitz. Maybe it's your wife. Go and see." So my father couldn't hardly walk anymore because of hunger. His legs hardly carried him. That was too far for him to walk. So they said, "Can you ask him to come to me?" And that's what they did. So he asked the American soldiers. He asked for a few chocolate bars to give for the kids, and they came. And that was my mother with the 3 kids. 3 hours after he landed. I asked my brother, how did it go? This, see each other again after so many years. So he said, he was a stranger. He didn't recognize him. He was so, I don't know this word in English, skinny. I didn't recognize him, he said. None of us. Okay, the other was a little, my sister was then 9 years old, and my brother was bar mitzvah in Bergen-Belsen in the camp. And no, he said it took a while till we were really together again.
But it must have been very emotional when they...
Yeah, I can imagine.
And your father didn't know that his wife and the children had survived?
At the beginning, no. At the beginning, they were allowed to write letters to each other, and we have those letters, and a few, but it was everything was rosy, everything was sunny, and everything, and between the lines you could read, but at a certain moment it stopped already. Yeah, but then they didn't know about each other, I think for 2 years. Yeah. So I told you about, yeah. So my mother, to tell you things about my mother as well.
Your mother was...
She was amazing. She was
incredible.
Incredible. So by the end of the war, so Mrs. Laufer became very, very ill, and she had to go to the border to the infirmary, Rivier, as you call it in German. And my mother said to the girls, the Laufer girls, as Gisela, Margriet, and Bori, Dora. Well, she was a little child. I'll take care of. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. But Gisela is the oldest. She said, no, 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 no. I'm sure you want our bread, and we do it ourselves. So, well, I let it, of course. But 2 weeks later, they were liberated by the English army. And my mother ran to the infirmary to look for her, and she asked, "Where's Betty?" Or so Betsy. So no, she said. They said she's already out on the piles, and there were piles of bodies, staples. By the way, my brother told me we were so. I said it I don't say it in English. We were so nothing bothered us anymore. We were playing with little stones, 5 stones, playing, as in Hebrew we call it gulot, in the middle of piles of dead bodies, and it didn't do anything to us. And so my mother ran out and found Mrs. Laufer on top of a pile of bodies, and noticed that she was moving one of her fingers, pink, I think, and so she was alive, unconscious, of course. She ran to the doctor. He was actually the officer from the medical officer, and she said to him, "My friend is still alive, and can you take her off?" And so, no, he said to my mother, "No, that's a pretty shame for all the medicine. She's dying anyway, so leave it." So my mother didn't leave it, and she started yelling at him, and she made kind of a fuss over there. So finally he was fed up with my mother, and he said to 2 soldiers, okay, go with the lady and take her off from the pile. So the 2 soldiers came with me, with my mother. They took off Mrs. Laufer from the pile, and she was, I think, for 3 weeks she was unconscious till she finally came by. And if not my mother, who was making noise over there, yelling to this British officer, to this doctor, she wouldn't be there. But a very interesting and amazing story, which closes the circle. 50 years, like 50, 60 years later, I was alone with my wife. We were invited for by Christians for Israel. There's a whole group in Holland. I think they also in Germany, also other places. They are very, very Israel-minded, and they a few times a year they have a Shabbat. They call it an Israel Shabbat, meaning all the members are coming, or members they want to come, and they show how a Shabbat is how the Jews do a Shabbat. And they invite for every Shabbat another couple, and this time they invited us, if you want to come to show us what is Shabbat. So we asked our rabbi, of course, if you could go, and he said yes. Certain things you have to say and not to say, or whatever, you can go. So we were there. Now part of the Shabbat, and nothing to do with the Shabbat itself, but of course there was the 3 times was a panel, and I mean we were the panel, and Friday night the one time it was about Israel, once it was about Judaism, and the third one, Shabbat afternoon, it was of course about the war. So my wife is actually the one who was telling this story about Mrs. Laufer, how my mother took off, or he said how my mother-in-law took off Mrs. Laufer from the pile of bodies. She told the whole story and so on. Okay, by the end, after that part was finished, there came up a couple from the participants over there, and they introduced themselves, and she said, my father was a soldier in the Second World War, and he was one of the liberators from Bergen-Belsen. He passed away a few years ago, she said, and he never ever spoke about his wartime, what happened in Normandy and so on, and all the battles and all this. But there was one thing he told us, and it wasn't even Bergen-Belsen. He was asked by the officer, was another soldier, to take off a Jewish woman from the pile from the bodies. So that was this. His name was Charles Wilson. I have a picture of him, and Charles Wilson was the one who is not a soldier, who took off after so many years. It was a whole circle. It's close to circle. It's incredible story. Yeah.
That they happened to be at that Shabbos where you were. It's just unbelievable.
It's amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I still have very good contact with them. Yeah. I told you about that my mother was cried. There was a piece of iron. One of her nieces, not my niece, one of her nieces who stayed in Amsterdam after the war for a long time, and she told about my mother. She said your mother was in every barak there were at least 100 women, also by the men, right? So it was huge. She said that your mother, she held the spirit high of all those 100 women. It was amazing. And my mother also told that she did tell that I told everyone, you have to keep clean, and if ever you have lice, there was so much lice over there, so many. So you take off the lice, you have to keep clean, to comb, if ever you have a piece of a comb, to comb your hair, and soap and whatever there was, keep clean, and do remember all the names of your family, just to keep sane. She said you have to keep sane, and by remember your parents, of course, your grandparents, uncles, whatever you know about the family names. Try to remind it day after day. That's what keeps you sane. But she told us that the moment people let themselves go with their lives, emotional, not anymore there, that was the end. That was mainly the end of that person. They went up in heaven quite quickly. And my mother was, one of the mazel was, because she had a Hungarian passport, for some reason she didn't have to work. Like my father, although he had a Romanian passport, I told you, he was already working. For some reason she didn't have to work. And that was still in Ravensbrück. What she did, and they got paid for it, with pieces of bread, because dead people were lying around so inmates who helped to bury the dead bodies, mainly in a mass grave, of course. They got pieces of bread for every dead person, that inmate. And she did it. That's how she fed the kids. So for every time, mainly for every time, she got one little slice of bread or a bit more in this. And she also she was able to smuggle a little siddur in, and they didn't find it. And she let the women pray. Everyone wants to pray, of course, to pray. And my sister, the youngest then, she was a baby. She was 1 year old, 1.5. It was cold, middle of the night, and she was crying. And my mother knew that the main part of the women, they had to next day they had to work, and they had to get up 5 o'clock in the morning to get ready for work and go out and so on. So she didn't want to wake the other women. So whenever my sister was crying, she took her outside, was standing outside in the cold in the winter, just not to wake up the other women. And yeah, that's how she kept the moral, you say, from all those ladies, kept the spirit high, and yeah, she was an amazing person, but she was also a very tough person. By the end, by Bergen-Belsen, when it came to Bergen-Belsen, again, well, there's the story, of course, for the Christmas story. She said that, well, I think you know this already, but should I tell it again? Or because of my brother and my older sister, they were born in Bratislava. Bratislava at the time was called Pressburg, which is the German name for it. Bratislava, Pressburg was then a German-speaking city, and my mother was in the Deutsche Volksschule, was not a Jewish school, and so she spoke fluently German. Also my father, by the way, but he learned that also in Bratislava later. So because of they spoke German, it was my brother and sister spoke German. And a few months before Christmas, and that must have been the last Christmas, I think, 44. The Germans they organized a Christmas party for the kids, and they asked all the kids to come, those who were able to sing, and maybe who speak German as well, to learn Christmas carols, to sing for the Christmas party. So my brother and my sister went, I don't know, maybe a month before, 2 months before, to learn all the Christmas carols in German, of course. And came Christmas evening, my mother said to the kids, to the children, "You're not going." And she said also there was beside Mrs. Laufer, there was another mother with also 3 kids. Kalush, I think was the name, I'm not sure. And she said to all of them, "Nobody's going to a Christmas party. You learned the carols, that's fine, but we are Jews. We have nothing to do with Christmas. Nobody is going to the party. That's it." And nobody went to the party. They stayed there. Nobody went. And that was the end of the story. We knew. And every Hanukkah, Hanukkah, Christmas time, same. She was year after year, she was very, very proud to tell the story about Christmas going on, Christmas party, and I said every year the same. I said to the children and the other children, to 2 other mothers, "We are not going to the party. It's not for us. It's Christians, not us." Till 50 years later, it was 50 years liberation of Ravensbrück. The women of Ravensbrück, they invited all the survivors to come to commemorate the liberation, And it was a whole week. They went from one camp to the other camp, and to one, how do you say, Andarte, memorial, whatever. And so they went by bus, and my two sisters, they went. My brother didn't want to go. He said, that was then, it's not for me. My mother was, she felt it was too old to go, so my older sister, two sisters, they went to this commemoration. And one day they were sitting in the bus, and in front of them there were sitting two other ladies. And my sister hears one of the ladies tell the other one that I am the only child who survived Buchenwald. So my
Ravensbrück?
Ravensbrück. So my sister tapped her on the shoulder, and she said, I overheard you talking about Ravensbrück, and she told her the story. I have to go back a bit. This lady in front of her told her story to her friend who was with her. Apparently she wasn't there, but she went with a friend. And she told about there was a Christmas party, and we all went to this barack was somewhere in the middle of the camp. It was huge. Raus was a huge camp. And there were at a certain moment, during the war, there were between 40 and almost 70,000 women in that camp. It was one of the biggest camp over there. And she said we went in the barack, and it was nice, there was this Christmas trees and all kind of, how they call this, Christmas decorations, and there was music, and so on. I was with my brother, she said. I was then 15, and my brother was 11. And we were alone. We came alone, can you imagine? Came alone from Auschwitz. Alone, two children. And she said, I smelled a rat, as you call it. I smelled something was not okay. And I said to my brother, go out, jump out of the window, I will follow you. And that's what they did, not by the door, but by the window. And because of the commotion and the music and so on, nobody paid attention. That they climbed out of the window, and then they went back like 200 meters from the barack, and they was watching there what happened. And she told her friend that at a certain moment the barack was surrounded by the soldiers, and they started shooting inside through the windows. All the kids were in already, shooting. They threw grenades into the windows, and she said the whole barack went up in flames with all the children inside. And me and my brother and me were the only ones who survived. So then my sister tapped her on the shoulder, and she said, no, I survived as well. And my brother and my sister was sitting next to me. So she said, can't be. That must be your mother or whatever. No, she said, I was there. And then she told the lady in front of her how they survived, because she told her that my mother said to all the kids in the barack, nobody is going. So I told my mother, I remember I was the one who told it to my mother 50 years later. I'm telling you, my mother was sitting there for a minute. She couldn't speak. She didn't know this story, this part. But her part was ended. We are not going to the party. End of the story. So I asked my mother, how is it possible that you didn't hear fire, grenades, explosions. No, she said it was already by the end of the war, and we heard already the Russians were there, and the English were there, and we heard already cannons, and it was a huge camp, and nobody would allow to stomp to each other. So no, we didn't notice that there was a barrack going up in flames. So she didn't, how to say this, she didn't know what to say. Only 50 years later came out what she did to save the kids in her barrack. And that was in Ravensbrück. Later on in Buchenwald, in Bergen-Belsen, like in every camp, every morning they had to stand on the roll call, appel. So my brother was very ill. He had kind of typhus, and it was very difficult for him to stand on his feet. This story my mother didn't tell us. My brother told me that. He told us also in the video he made by Yad Vashem. Somehow my mother never told this story. So he was very ill, and sometimes he was standing for 2 hours. And so what she did was she took a chair to the appel, and she sat my brother on the chair. Well, there came the Germans, 2 officers and a soldier, and they came to see if everyone was there. They were counting, and this officer sees my brother sitting on a chair, and he started yelling at my mother. And at a certain moment he gave her such a smack in the face, that with such a force that my mother fell on the floor, on the ground. She stood up and she started yelling at this officer in German. And she said to Mr. Finger, my brother said, he was laughing, he said, my mom, with a finger pointed to the officer, and she started yelling to the officer in German, how dare you to slap me in my face? In German go, wie wagen Sie es, mich zu schlagen in mein Gesicht, my face, in front of my children? That is not the way I raised my children. And that is not the way you should behave. My son is sick, he can't stand on his feet, and he will sit on the chair whether you like it or not. So my brother said, and everyone here, there were hundreds of women standing there, row after row, and they all hear my mother yelling to the officer. My brother said, this officer, he stood still for if it was half a minute or a minute, it was completely quiet. And then he turned around and continued.
He could have just shot him.
He could have shot him on the spot. And my sister and brother as well. I know from others who were there that many times when one of the Jews who could speak German yelled back or said something back, they can't say admired it, but it's all of a sudden they saw a Jew who's not afraid and doesn't let him. So my mother didn't ask her later, how did you dare to do that? So she said, I don't know. Now I think, well, I must have been crazy because he could have shot us. But she said, at the same moment, I felt I couldn't let this go. Yeah. And then my brother was bar mitzvah by the end of the he hardly knew what bar mitzvah was. So one day, his bar mitzvah was Shushan Purim.
And he had the bar mitzvah in
Bergen-Belsen, yeah. So he said, my mother said to him, Uriel, today you are bar mitzvah. I don't think he realized what bar mitzvah was, because I think the last 4 years there was nothing. Also in Amsterdam, still in Amsterdam, there's no bar mitzvahs anymore. And so he got in Seudat bar mitzvah, which was a plate, and all the women, they all gave from their food a little piece of bread, a little piece of some marmalade, some this, all around. I think this is bar mitzvah Seudah. And he got 2 presents. My mother found a worn out tennis ball somewhere, and a little piece of a pencil. That was his bar mitzvah present. Yeah, and then they came back in Amsterdam. And the only thing my father said to everyone, we won't look back. We are not looking back. We're only looking forward from now on. We're looking forward. You have to start again. That's what they did.
It's incredible. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is.
Moshe, it really is. Moshe, can you show? You have the most amazing picture.
Yeah, this is right after the war in 1940. Oops, 46. I wasn't born yet. If you can look well, you can see in the eyes, a bit hollow, a bit black. You see the.
It's like a sadness in a way.
The sadness. You see the Gehenna in the eyes.
They went through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Moshe, when you grew up, did your parents often speak about the Shoah?
Yeah, I think it was, well, I'm sure, not I think, we all were blessed with 2 parents who were, as you call it in Yiddish, Eisen. They were strong iron. They never ever lost the emunah, and they kept on. And not only that, I know from many. I'm 2nd generation, right? But many of the survivors who survived and married or were married. I mean, this is a seldom thing that the whole family, not only because also the Laufers, the whole family survived, right?
But I think it's very unique that you have 2 families with 3 children.
It's amazing.
And both the parents and the 3 children.
Right, definitely.
survived.
And then not only that, the 2 fathers were together and the mothers were together and didn't know about each other for all those, they did at least 2 years.
And they were in the same camps.
The same camps, and then the one, because of my mother and my father, the others were still there. And Tzvi was born because of that.
And his sisters as well.
And his sisters, 2 sisters, yeah. So my, yes. I know that many survivors, they didn't want to speak about it. My brother couldn't tell anything. He didn't want to tell. Only when he, much later, when his few of the grandchildren, when they grew up, they start asking my brother about the war. Then he finally opened up. But that is at least 50 years that he didn't speak about it. My sister did, my older sister, and it's the second one didn't remember anything. She was a little child. And my sister did, and my parents also. They told everything without pressure. Without pressure from, no, you have to do this, you have to, we survived, and so on. No, they told all the stories. sometimes, yeah, so you had to laugh as well. Or they had to.
And Moshe, what happened to the extended families? Your parents, they...
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Besides that, by the liberation, another thing, how my mother had her. I mean, sane. She told us that, but after the day after the Germans fled, everyone rushed to the kitchen and to the storage, to grab food and so on. And many died because of that, because the stomach couldn't bear the amount of food, or the kind of food. My mother said to the three children, said, "Oy said, you are only eating what I give you to eat, and don't let me catch you to take from others, whatever. I give you to eat, and I tell you when and what to eat." That's how they. Yeah, she understood. She understood that your stomach can't count, and many of them didn't, and they died like flies sometimes.
So tragic that people were so hungry, and
and she was as hungry as she was, and as hungry the kids were. She said, "You're only eating what I give you to eat, nothing else." After the war, we kept. They were in Rotterdam, we were in Amsterdam. I remember I was from time to time. I was for Shabbat by Tzvi by the Laufers, and he was by me in Amsterdam for Shabbat, and was bar mitzvahs and so on, and weddings, and we were. Yeah.
And Moshe, your parents, they extended families. Did any survive? Uncles, aunts?
Not many. My father was one of four sisters. No, one of five sisters, and he was the only boy. Three didn't survive. One, my aunt Chaya, she survived Auschwitz, and another one survived because she made Aliyah in 1934. As a 17-year-old girl, she went to Israel on her own.
That saved her life.
That saved her life, yeah. But my grandfather was murdered in Auschwitz, and for my mother, her mother, sister, brother-in-law, two siblings from nephews, many, got killed. Yeah.
And wasn't it difficult for your parents to go back to Amsterdam, where so many people were
But of course it was.
The city wasn't the same as it was. It was.
No, not only that, and you have to take into account that, like today, anti-Semitism from today. It's the myth is that the Dutch were so good for the Jews, which it's not true. They were not like in Poland, where they were chasing after the neighbors with knives. But many, a big part looked to the other side. They were passive. And many of them, when they came back, you survived. Oh, you came back. Oh, no. They are there again. It happens a lot. I have a friend, lives here next door. Also Poland, and he told his parents were married right before the war. They were in hiding, and they came back to their apartment. Somebody was in their apartment. And they didn't budge. A Dutch, not German, a Dutch. So they opened the door, and she said, yes. She said, "Well, he understood that, and I don't know why he didn't go to the government to whatever. I don't. You can't go into what they went through and how. But the only thing he did was he saw his coat hanging in the hall. So the only thing he did, he pushed away the lady, and he said, "It's okay, just let me take my coat." But on the other hand, my parents came home untouched.
And the home is still...
And untouched. Well, there was in one of the big movers. They were collaborators with the Germans, and they emptied out most of the Jewish homes where they were deported to Germany, but not everyone. Also, my in-laws, they were in hiding. I mean, they were not married yet; they were younger. But my father-in-law, although Solomon, with his brother, he was in hiding, and they came back in Haarlem to their house. Everything was there. They got the house back also. And also my parents, they came home, opened the door, everything was there. I mean, see, this is a misnomer. I have to be repaired, has to be polished and so on. Well, my wife was very angry that I did it so far. but this was from the when he got married in 1931.
It's the same.
Yeah, it was there. Everything was there. But that's why we have loads of pictures. My father had kind of a hobby to photograph. So I have pictures from my grandfather, grandmother, from the farm. My grandfather, a huge farm in Romania, a very big farm, and so everything was there, everything. Only one thing not. My father, he told many times with a smile, because he was laughing at it himself, and he said, we came in, so from Eindhoven we went to, we came in our house, and the first thing I said, "Where's my baby grand?" And he said, "Am I sugar? I survived 3 Gehinnoms," he said. And the only thing I could say is, "Where is my baby grand?" Everything was there. That's the only thing. Somebody took it away. He had a very nice piano. But for the rest, everything was there. It's amazing.
But with the Dutch, the one thing that does stand out, there were many that hid.
There were many Hasidim, Rotterdam, and Malagit.
Righteous amongst the nations.
Sorry? Yes. Better.
And they endangered their own lives.
And many died. Many died in camps because of that. I mean, I know from farmers, one of the famous families, they hid over 300 people on their farm. Till the old father was taken by the Germans. He passed away in the camp.
There were informers as well. There were also Dutch informers.
Better, of course, yeah. But there were a lot who really saved the Jews. A lot who took them in hiding, and but the other hand, a too big part looked the other way. There is a movie, an older movie about the wartime, about the few famous Dutch heroes who were from the resistance, and they did it on purpose, of course. You see, one of two of the students who came into the resistance, and you see them playing tennis. And further down, you see the whole queue of Jews who are going to the train station. And you hear one of them saying, not from just two others who are playing. They looked, oh, look at the poor people over there. Yeah. And they continued playing tennis. Many of them was like that. Not everyone. There were a lot of good people. A lot of good people. But the myth that everyone was so good, no. I must not. Atri de Kar, it was so that even the mother of the queen, from the king today, when she was Queen Beatrix, it actually came out, it was, I think it was in the 60s, I think. It came out that it wasn't, the myth exploded, let me say. And she apologized. She apologized for a big part of the Dutch people who looked the other way. Passive. The passiveness from the Dutch.
I think also the Dutch railways, the transports, they also apologized.
They repaid. There's a fund, I think, a couple of years ago. They started paying
reparations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
also we got. Whoever could tell that you prove that your parents were taken away by the Dutch railway, they got we also got that's not so much, but yeah.
And Moshe, have you ever been to the camps to Bergen-Belsen?
No. And that's the thing which I definitely want to go. I didn't, and I have to go to Theresienstadt, because Theresienstadt is still there. Buchenwald, I think nothing is there anymore, and also Ravensbrück, it's a field. It's nothing. But Theresienstadt is still kind of a museum. So I'm a biker. And it's still my dream. I have to do it before I get too old for that. I wanted to bike the same route as my father went on foot by the Death March.
I think that's so significant.
Yeah, I have still to do that. I have to do that.
And Moshe, if you could play, you've got it on your summer.
To hear what
your father's concerns.
Let me. Here it is, and I have to tell you before that my father told me, not once or twice, more than that. He said, you have to understand that my voice, I always had to feel that I know. He said that my voice lost at least 50% what it was before the war. So if you listen now to this, you can imagine what it was. Yeah.
It's incredible. And this was...
That's amazing.
This was after the war.
This was after the war, yeah.
Moshe, look, you've taken over in your father's footsteps. You're also a chazan.
Yeah, but I don't have his voice.
Wow.
But, yeah, I do. I mean, people say that if I'm davening, they hear, and people who knew my father, we can hear your father in your singing. Yeah.
Moshe, if I can ask, what message do you give to your children and grandchildren and to the future generations?
I don't know. It's of course, I have today with the situation we are now, which I think it's a terrible situation, and I tried many times in my life actually to figure out or to imagine what they felt by the beginning of the war, and what happened before in Austria and all this anti-Semitism. And it's a thing you can't imagine till now, because I do imagine. If you see what's going on in the world now, this is if people don't get the message, then it will be terrible. The only thing I know that in my life, and that's a message actually, in my life, like everyone has their ups and downs. Nobody has a rose garden all his life, right? There's mountain high and river deep sometimes. But in the worst times that there were, I always thought about my parents. If they, after such a Gehenna, and twice, 3 times Gehenna, could continue and keep on smiling and laughing, so, but how wouldn't? I mean, of course I can. I mean, that's the message. I mean, we all had our terrible things, our parents, and I think we have to take an example from them. If they kept their emunah, they kept their belief, in whatever happens is for the good, and whatever happens you have to, like I told my father, you have to take it ba'ahava. And that's how we are. That's how we should be. And that's a message to my children and the grandchildren, and thank God I have great grandchildren as well. And yeah, if they could, we can.
Well, it's a beautiful message, and it's so true. I just want to thank you. It's been, for me, just thank you.
Yeah.
It's been such an honor and a privilege to be here.
Okay, sorry
Moshe,
for the chat.
Moshe, I'm so grateful to you.
Yeah.
Really, this is, you know, hearing the story of your parents, the Moskowitz family and the Laufer family, there are no words. There just are no words. It's unique that two families,
definitely,
both the parents and the children, 3 children survived 3 camps, remained from, kept their emunah, raised families after the war as well. And it's just,
come to think of it, it's
incomprehensible. It really is. And look, you must be so incredibly proud of your parents.
I am, yes. Yes, I can't find words to express how blessed we were or are to have such parents. To have such parents, not only what they kept, the belief they kept, but also the way they told us what it was and how it was, and it was. I never ever saw my parents, not my father, not my mother, being down or being depressed, crying. Yes, sometimes. But I remember I saw me when I was 10 or 11. So someone crying, my father crying. So I asked, why is my father crying? So they told me about this. There's another story.
For sure, but before you tell the story, I just want to mention, you mentioned that your father, when he helped Mr. Laufer, when they were going on the death march, really, and he was so weak himself, and he weighed so little,
36 kilo,
and to carry somebody else,
schlep.
It's just it's unbelievable.
He was his will of not the will of life, but the will of continuation of I mean to carry on was, I think, above his physical abilities to do that.
Well, Moshe, you have to go to Theresienstadt. You have to do that trip.
I want another.
It's like not a March of the Living. You are reenacting what your father went through. I think it's so vital, and I'm so grateful. And you should just have Mazel and Bracha. And if you could relate what you've been saying, we are so blessed to hear these stories. And
can I tell one other story? And then we have to finish, because there are so many stories, and it's getting a bit late. I'm getting hungry. When I was 11 years old, I was playing outside at school in the break, and I bumped in some piece of iron by playing, and a very big gash in my leg. So I run to school, and they called my father. So we went to hospital, to the ER at the time, and they had stitched. It's quite a deep gash. But they said to me that they said to my father, "Your son is not allowed to stand on his leg, at least for a week, because of the stitches." So we went out we didn't have a car, so we went out to a cab, and we lived at the time at that one flight up stairs. So my father asked the cab driver, "Can you do me a favor? Can you, my son is not allowed to stand on his leg, can you carry him up?" And so I was a little small boy, it wasn't a problem for him. So he carried me up, and so but inside I've asked my father, I told him, I said, what? Your father can carry me? I mean, your father is a hero, is a strong man always, right? So I asked my father, why did you have to ask the cab driver to carry me? Why couldn't you carry me? So he said, you know, I can't anymore, because then he told me, I was only 11, he told me when I was in Buchenwald, I was for quite a while, I was a capo. And unlike most of the capos, I was a different capo, he said. I didn't know at the time what was a capo, but he told me that I was responsible for 21 young guys who had to work on whatever, outside to hack, whatever, to throw stones and so on. And they were all yeshiva-lite, you know, learners. They never had a spade in their hands for their life, so they couldn't make the daily quorum. You say right? Quorum, right? Quotum, yeah, quotum, right. So, but I was responsible. So every day we came back, and they didn't make what I had to do. They didn't have the amount I got on my back was a stick. Every day, day after day. And that's the reason why I can't my back is ruined. I can't carry you anymore. That's the reason why I had to ask the cab driver. So later on I understood what a capo was. But he was one of the good capos. And the story goes that my father had a kind of a pincas with all the, he wrote with a little piece of pencil in the camps, songs, and he had Svirata Omer, all kind of things. And he had one page was a whole number, 21 numbers. And my brother had this booklet, and he showed it to one who was in the diamond Bursa in Ramat Gan, to one of the I think he was the chairman of the Bursa. So that was the time when he started speaking about, right? So he showed it to this man, but he knew that this man was also in Buchenwald. And so he saw these numbers, and he said, "What?" He says, "This is me. This number, it's me." He said, "That was your father?" He said. So my mother said, "Yeah, well, this is the number my father was responsible for." So he said, "You know, your father had a nickname in Buchenwald. They called him the White Malach, the White Angel. Your father never let us work harder than we could." And he also said in his side, we all knew that your father got with a big stick on his back because of us. That was him.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Moshe, thank you so much.
You have to finish, thank you.